An Arctic blast is about to bring down unusually cold temperatures into a big portion of the US later this week. Plus, we're about to have not one, not two, but three tropical systems out there to watch as things heat up as we approach the climatological peak of the hurricane season. And one of them is already about to become a hurricane very soon. In this video, I'm about to show you what's going on with this weird weather pattern, but first, happy Labor Day to everyone watching, and if you're new here, feel free to hit that subscribe button for more weather updates. So, we're looking at this big Arctic blast that's expected to bring unusually cold temperatures into a big portion of the US over the next few days. Here's a look at the temperature anomalies showing what's going to be happening tonight going into tomorrow. You see, temperatures are slightly below average across a lot of the eastern part of the US already, but then we have some very warm temperatures across the Pacific Northwest. They're not going to be experiencing this cooler weather pattern. As we go into Wednesday, well below average temperatures start surging down into the northern plains, the Midwest, with temperatures possibly 20 to 30 degrees below average, and these could be some record cold temperatures to some degree in some areas. And we can see that the most below average temperatures are going to be across the Midwest, but it extends down even into the Ohio Valley, even going all the way down into like Missouri, even Kentucky as we go through Thursday, and then Friday and Saturday we could see more below average temperatures coming in, and then this keeps going through the weekend, even into early next week. On Monday, we could see some well below average temperatures in the central part of the US, and then also the West Coast starts to cool down too. As we go towards September 10th or so, by the middle of next week, we can see temperatures start to even out again, but things will also start cooling down in the western US, interestingly enough, as we go through the end of next week. So the weather pattern is going to be pretty active for a while. Here's a look at the temperatures. We have Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. We could already see low temperatures in the low 40s across North Dakota, even around 40 in northern Minnesota. Low temperatures in the 50s, maybe the low 60s across a big portion of the Midwest and even the Northeast. The East Coast seeing low temperatures in the 60s, which is not super cold. Then notice what happens as these very cold temperatures start moving in to the Midwestern US and the Northern Plains. You can see, especially around Minnesota, temperatures dropping down to freezing. Locations in Minnesota and Wisconsin and also the upper peninsula of Michigan are very likely to see the first frost and even the first freeze of the season. And this is actually pretty rare to see these temperatures moving in at the beginning of September. This is definitely fall-like conditions happening, something you'd expect to happen a bit later in fall. So this is sort of an Arctic blast. It's not 0 degrees or anything, but still sort of Arctic air moving into the northern part of the US. And this continues, even seeing temperatures in the low to mid 30s across Minnesota, especially Wednesday night into Thursday morning. That continues. And then going into Friday morning, low temperatures in the upper 30s across northern Minnesota, the low 40s across the Dakotas, and then this even extends into the Midwest with low temperatures in the low to mid 40s, even in Iowa, northern Illinois, even Michigan. And then the South is actually staying warm, as you notice. Even on Friday, you see temperatures reaching 100 degrees across Arkansas, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas. The South still seeing a pretty intense heat wave, even parts of the Pacific Northwest seeing high temperatures in the upper 90s, and California looking at some pretty warm conditions there with high temperatures in the 90s as well. But high temperatures could actually be in the 40s or around 50 across Michigan. Even further west in the northern plains and the Midwest, they could see high temperatures on Friday in the mid 50s. So seeing a lot of very cold temperatures. And then this continues going into this weekend. You see a resurgence of some of those cold temperatures with lows in the 30s in North Dakota. But this is where it starts extending pretty far to the south you can see low temperatures in the 40s extending all the way into southern Missouri, perhaps, and even parts of Kentucky. So this is bringing down well below average temperatures all the way down even into the south. And then you have lows in the 50s as far south as Arkansas and Tennessee. Still the East Coast, along the coast, seeing some warm conditions happening, and of course the South seeing some pretty warm overnight lows. Things are cooling down in the West Coast, though, by this weekend, so there's that, with high temperatures in the 80s in California and the 60s and 70s for the Pacific Northwest. Still the South looking at high temperatures in the high 90s, so that heat is going to continue for a while there. But then those low temperatures come back down into the 30s. So this is going to be happening for several days with some pretty cold temperatures, and that continues, and then some of that cold air slides eastward, and then you start seeing freezing conditions in upstate New York by Sunday night into next Monday, September 8th. And then things warm up to the 40s and 50s, but then you start seeing some cooler temperatures moving into the central plains, the northern and central plains in the Midwest, kind of the central part of the U.S., seeing highs in the 50s across those regions, and then start seeing things start to warm back up across the central plains. The Ohio Valley is starting to see temperatures back in the 70s and then 80s in the central plains, but still somewhat cooler than average, and then we still see cool conditions in the Northeast, and then notice things are really starting to cool down across the western part of the U.S. with highs in the low 80s in California and cooling down across the higher elevations in the Pacific Northwest. So that's kind of what's going to be happening over the next week or so in terms of those temperatures. But as that Arctic blast brings in those well below average temperatures, there's going to be some wind on top of that that's going to make things feel even colder than the actual temperature. So here's what things look like Tuesday night into Wednesday morning. Feels like temperatures in around 40 across northern parts of North Dakota and Minnesota. And then here's where you start seeing things cooling down further. This is what it feels like on Wednesday afternoon. You have a lot of heat across a big part of the U.S., but here's where that Arctic blast starts to come in, where you have temperatures that feel like 34 at 5 p.m. on Wednesday. So it's going to feel pretty cold. And then you have feels like temperatures in the 20s in Minnesota, like 27 degrees, even in the low 30s in northeastern Iowa, and feeling like the upper 20s in Wisconsin. So some very cold temperatures pushing in, and it gets a little bit less intense as we go towards Friday, but still feeling pretty much well below average across the Midwest, across the Ohio Valley, with feels like temperatures in the low 40s and even the upper 30s happening again going into the weekend before some of those colder temperatures actually slide eastward and start affecting the Northeast, with feels like temperatures about the same in the low 30s and upper 20s. So that's pretty much what's happening in terms of those temperatures. Some well below average temperatures moving into the northern plains, the Midwest, the Ohio Valley, and even reaching the mid-south later this week before things kind of shift over towards the Northeast. And there could actually be record low temperatures in terms of not so much of the record low minimum temperatures, but there's going to be record low high temperatures. So that high temperature is only going to be in the 50s, perhaps in certain areas across the Midwest, especially on Thursday, where there could be 14 tied records and 4 records being broken for the Midwest, with high temperatures in the 50s across this region. This is something pretty rare. And it's not just the temperatures. There's actually going to be a weather system that's associated with this big trough moving in that's bringing some precipitation. You have showers and thunderstorms across the northern plains on Wednesday afternoon before a lot of those colder temperatures move in, and then you see a lot of that colder air starts really pushing in behind all that. And then you still have a line of showers and thunderstorms moving through the Midwest, going towards the Northeast, going to Thursday and Friday. But then notice this, you actually have tropical moisture moving up towards the southwestern U.S. from a tropical storm system. Yeah, there's tropical moisture actually moving into the southwestern U.S. later this week and this weekend. Some of that could actually make it into Texas and Oklahoma as well. So the tropics are heating up. We have a couple storm systems in the eastern Pacific. We have Tropical Storm Kiko with maximum sustained winds right now at 65 miles an hour in the middle of the eastern Pacific. Then we have this disturbance, Invest 94, a 90% chance of tropical cyclone formation within the next 7 days. And it shows that winds are close to 35 miles an hour right now, so it's about to become a tropical depression very soon in the next couple days, moving west-northwestward or northwestward at 10 to 15 miles per hour off the coast of southwestern Mexico, and then it could actually turn northward and approach Baja California later this week, and they could need watches and warnings for sure for Baja California. And also heavy rainfall is expected across western Mexico over the next several days, and even affecting northwestern Mexico and Baja California later this week. So that's the storm system that's going to end up even bringing rain into the southwestern US late this week into this weekend. Then we have this, a disturbance in the tropical Atlantic. Tropical wave over the eastern tropical Atlantic is expected to develop into potentially a tropical depression by the middle or later part of this week as it moves westward. Now, this one, it could become a fish storm. It's most likely to turn, is what most of the forecast models are showing right now, is that it's going to turn and become a fish storm. But if it gets named as a tropical storm, the next name is Gabrielle. So we have that with a 60% chance of tropical cyclone formation the next 7 days. But Tropical Storm Kiko, it could actually end up impacting Hawaii. It's actually a compact tropical system, sort of an eye trying to form on the satellite imagery. The latest cone just takes it west, as it actually brings it up to Category 2 strength as it goes west in the eastern Pacific. But here's a look at the GFS model. We have, as it goes west, it could intensify pretty quickly into a powerful Category 2 hurricane. Now, it could end up impacting Hawaii. This is the latest run, showing it weakening down to a tropical storm, pretty weak tropical storm at that, by the time it moves just north of Hawaii. The previous run also moved it faster and moved it directly into Hawaii around September 9th. So that is something to watch. It may or may not hit Hawaii at this point, but it is possible. And then we have the next storm, that disturbance Invest 94, expected to strengthen pretty quickly into potentially a Category 2 hurricane on the GFS model before it moves into Baja California, bringing all that heavy rain starting on Thursday and Friday, going into the weekend with heavy rain across northwestern Mexico, Arizona, New Mexico, and even moving into the southern plains as well. And then we have our disturbance in the Atlantic that could become Tropical Storm Gabrielle, or even Hurricane Gabrielle, over the next several days. We have the Euro model showing it becoming a tropical system at some point. It's probably underestimating the intensity, but pay attention to the general track. It is expected to become a fish storm. As you notice, the Euro model moves it to the northwest, and it does intensify it finally into a powerful hurricane by the end of next week. And then it goes through the Atlantic, so it could be going for a while, but not really doing anything. It does get close to Bermuda before it gets turned out into the open Atlantic by the middle of September. But other than that, the GFS model was showing a couple other disturbances behind Gabrielle, so there is some tropical potential out there, even though the MJO is not favorable, even though we're going towards the peak of hurricane season, so we're supposed to be seeing something. Even if the MJO isn't super favorable for development, we could still see some storms. Right now, the MJO is pretty unfavorable over the Atlantic and the Eastern Pacific, even going through next week. And then the GEFS model isn't really showing anything favorable over the eastern part of the Atlantic. Like, the western part of the Atlantic is neutral, and even the Eastern Pacific is for the most part. But even as we go through the end of September, even into October, the GEFS model is not really showing anything super favorable for intense tropical development or anything like that, which is interesting. So maybe a less active September than previously thought, and a less active hurricane season as well. That's possible, but we could still see development, and these ensemble forecasts will shift around. So we'll have to see what happens with that. That's pretty much what's happening with the Arctic blast and the tropics. So Thanks for watching this video. If you liked it, please be sure to hit that like button if you haven't already, share the video, and make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications for more weather updates. Thanks for watching. Extreme Weather Zone, out.